Vladimir Putin has suspended Russia's last remaining nuclear treaty with the US. The announcement part of a fiery speech accusing Western countries of starting the war in Ukraine. The president's State of the Nation address comes as the Russian invasion of Ukraine approaches the one-year mark on Friday. Joining us to discuss is Yahoo Finance's Newman. Rick, obviously a tough development here with this fiery speech.
Right. Putin is trying to scare everybody. He will certainly scare some people, but let's put it in context. Basically, what he's saying is Russia will no longer participate in some of the provisions of this treaty, especially with regard to inspection. So Russia is not going to allow the United States to inspect its nuclear arsenal. There are other ways the United States can do that through satellites and things like that. But we're just going to know less about what's going on with Russia's nuclear arsenal. That does not mean they're going to develop new nuclear weapons or deploy them in new ways. But, you know, you could also read this as a kind of a desperation move by Putin. I mean, he knows his war in Ukraine is going badly. He also knows that Ukraine is due to get a lot of new Western equipment, including tanks, a lot of armored vehicles and other things like that, that are going to make Russia's job in Ukraine even harder. So he's trying to see if he can get some leverage over Ukraine and over its allies, including the United States, by threatening, to withdraw from this treaty. And it's really important that the United States and Ukraine's other allies don't take the bait on this. We need to remain steadfast in our support for Ukraine and help them win this war.
And as Russia is pulling away in that regard, there's also reporting from the Wall Street Journal suggesting that the Chinese President Xi Jinping could be heading to Moscow.
Yeah, and there's other news which suggests that China may be kind of changing its position here and actually becoming more of an ally to Russia in its war in Ukraine, perhaps by providing them more equipment and perhaps even some weapons. Up till now, China has been buying a lot of Russian goods, including energy, most importantly, but it has not really been contributing much to Russia's war effort. And the Secretary of State, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, has suggested that China may be considering changing that position. So Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, sounds like he's going to be traveling to Moscow in a couple of months. And, I think that would signal that Russia and China maybe are getting a little closer, getting a little bit tighter. There are major risks in this for China. I mean, they don't want to sign up to the losing side of this war. And what China would like to see in many ways, like the United States, is let's end this war and kind of get back to business as normal. But they may want to see it end in a different way than we do. And we got to pay a lot of attention to what's happening between China and Russia.
I mean, you have to think of the timing, especially with the dynamics between the US and China also being tense. I mean, we're following these tensions between the US and China, especially in the aftermath of the Munich conference. What's the latest there, Rick?
And in the aftermath of the spy balloon incident, let's not forget about that. Look, US-China relations are deteriorating. It is important to keep in mind that we remain huge trading partners. I mean, I've looked at the trade data recently, and we are almost back to record levels of Chinese imports coming to the United States. And that is actually with the Trump tariffs that were not in place the last time we had this much imports coming in from China. So the trade relationship is still really important. But look, China has been pretty aggressive in Asia. It's obviously building up its military. It has territorial claims that are disputed by other countries. Chinese President Xi Jinping keeps making these remarks, suggesting he does have in mind to invade Taiwan someday. What Russia did in Ukraine is obviously an analogy for what could happen if China ever does decide it wants to invade Taiwan. So, this is uncomfortable. But we've had relationships like this before. I mean, we did get through the Cold War when we had an even worse relationship with the USSR than we have with China right now. So this is for professionals to manage in Washington and Beijing and other world capitals, and they need to do a really good job here.